Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. I got an email from Laurel Stimson. It has to do with generations and the generation of the second coming. She says, I just came across this news clip. Last Civil War widow dies after keeping secret most of her life. And yes, this was a recent thing. And you heard right. The last Civil War widow. Yeah. I don't know if you heard this story before. I hadn't. But let me continue with the email. Laurel says, I never knew it could be possible to have a widow of Civil War veteran living up till now. I was so floored. It certainly put in perspective the generation living to see the second coming. Thank you for all that you've been doing. You're so awesome, Laurel. Well, thank you, Laurel, and thank you for sending me this email. I had no idea. And in case you don't know, I've done videos about different generations, and we've talked about this prophecy of Joseph Smith that he made about a particular generation that'll live to see the second coming. So we'll go over that in just a minute. Let me give you a quick update on the Flood the Earth Challenge. We're at 7,364 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared so far. We're trying to get to 10,000 total. And then 784 people that have joined the challenge. We're trying to get to 1,000 with that. So if you haven't already, I would encourage you to do so. Just share a copy of the Book of Mormon and then let me know in the comments of any video or send me an email and include #flood in your comment or your email to help me find your comment or your email. And also, if you've already shared a copy of the Book of Mormon, remember we're trying to get to, or the channel goal is at least 10. So try and get to 10. Do as many as you can, but try to get to at least 10. So good job, everybody. Let's keep pushing forward. Okay, so this is the YouTube video that she shared. I'll put a link for it in the description below in case you want to watch it. So the prophecy that we're talking about, it comes from Joseph Smith. And on the Joseph Smith papers, there are 5 entries where you can find it, 5 different sources. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to refer to Mormon Doctrine by Bruce R. McConkie in this section right here. The generation of our Lord's return. True it is that the day and the hour of the Lord's coming are and will remain unknown, such being an incentive to all to watch and be ready at all times. But true it also is that those who watch for that great and dread day are expected to read the signs of the times so as to know the approximate time of his coming. President Wilford Woodruff taught that we do know the generation when he will come. I was once praying very earnestly to know the time of the coming of the Son of Man, the prophet Joseph Smith recorded on April 2nd, 1843. When I heard a voice repeat the following, Joseph, my son, if thou livest until thou art 85 years old, thou shalt see the face of the Son. Thou shalt see the face of the Son of Man. Therefore, let this suffice, and trouble me no more on this matter. I was left thus without being able to decide whether this coming referred to the beginning of the millennium, or some previous appearing, or whether I should die and thus see his face. I believe the coming of the Son of Man will not be any sooner than that time. 4 days later, April 6, 1843, at the General Conference of the Church, while the Spirit rested upon him, the prophet said, were I going to prophesy, I would say the end of the world, the end would not come in 1844, 5, or 6, or in 40 years. There are those of the rising generation who shall not taste death till Christ comes. And there it is right there. There's that prophecy. So I believe Joseph Smith. And I believe that this was actually said because we have 5 different sources and they're all the same. They say the same thing. Bruce R. McConkie continues, the rising generation is the one that has just begun. Thus, technically, children born on April 6, 1843 would be the first members of the rising generation. And all children born, however many years later, to the same parents would still be members of that rising generation. It is not unreasonable to suppose that many young men had babies at the time of this prophecy, and also had other children as much as 50 or 75 years later, assuming, for instance, that they were married again to younger women. This very probable assumption would bring the date up to, say, the second decade in the 20th century, and the children so born would be members of that same rising generation of which the prophet spoke. Now, if these children lived to the normal age of men generally, they would be alive well past the year 2000 AD. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and admit a mistake that I made on this spreadsheet. Every time I read that, I thought he was referring to the children born at that time, as early as April 6, 1843, and then their children. I don't know how I did that, but that was wrong. What he's saying, and let me help you visualize it here. What he's saying is that if you had a parent that had a child on April 6, 1843, that would be the first member of the so-called rising generation. Okay? And so what I did is I have this hypothetical parent right here. In column L, you have the age. Okay, column M to identify that it's the parent. So I just said, okay, let's say that you have an 18-year-old that has a child, that fathers a child at that age. I don't know what the average age was for men to have their first child in the 1840s, but I think that 18 is very realistic. Maybe not as the average, but I'm sure there's plenty of people that had children at the age of 18. So that's what I set for this example. So that means that that parent would have been born in 1825. Okay, so this hypothetical parent has a child at the age of 18 in 1843 when Joseph Smith gives this prophecy. Later on, you go on through time. Let's go up and up and up and up. He could possibly have more children later on in life, either because of plural marriage, or it could be just because he remarried. Maybe he was a widower or whatever, divorced, remarries, and then has additional children, all the way up into his 80s, 90s, or beyond. Now, what I did is I looked at the oldest living people, and on this Wikipedia article called List of the Verified Oldest People, there's a section just for men. And according to this, the oldest verified man lived to 116 years and 50 days old from Japan. Jiroemon Kimura. Okay. And then you have a bunch of others, 115, 114, 114, 113. So you do have people that get up there in age. Okay. We're still in the teens, the 100 in teens right here. All right. I also pulled up this article, list of oldest fathers. And you have a similar table that shows you. Now this one, it doesn't say that they're verified. So it says list of claims. So the oldest one is James E. Smith at 101 years old. And then after that, 96 years old, 93, 92, 92, 90, 89, 89, 88, 86. And then it continues. There's a bunch of people that had children in their 80s. Okay. We've looked at recent articles. For example, let's just do it again. Just as a quick example, this is on New York Post. All of Hollywood's older dads, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and more. And it says here, many silver-haired Hollywood daddies had their children later in life, such as film icons Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, who both said they would be broadening their families at 79 years old and 83, respectively. So it still happens to this day. Okay. And so let's go back to the spreadsheet. So you can see that, this parent could have had a child pretty late in life and that person would still be alive. So for example, in column Q, I have the oldest living woman right now, Maria Brañas Morera. I have her pulled up right here, actually. Catalan News. And here she is, blowing out the candles on her birthday cake, 116 years old. She is currently the oldest living verified person. And then right after her, there's another 116-year-old, Fusa Tatsumi from Japan. After that, 115 years old, Edith. So you get the picture. There's a bunch of people that are in their 100 and teens. Okay, so let's go back here. So I have her because right now she's the oldest living person. She was born in 1907. And so she could have been fathered by this hypothetical parent at the age of 82. You know, and some of these other ones, they could have been born when the parent was 85, 86, in their 90s, you know, for example, even as far as 99 and 100, which interestingly brings us to President Nelson. He was born in 1924, and this hypothetical parent would have been 99 at that time. So you just never know. And it's not like we have every single person documented. I mean, it's a really large world. There's many countries. There's billions of people. So we don't really know. But you can see how this would work out. And yeah, we have Maria Brañas Morera still with us. We have President Nelson still with us. There's this person that we're going to talk about a little bit later, Helen Viola Jackson. She passed away just recently, but she could have been born or been fathered by this hypothetical parent. So basically, it seems like we're kind of toward the end of possibilities, which maybe makes sense. You know, I think that we're getting really close to the second coming, and this could be one evidence of that. So anyway, before this point, I had tried to look for some pretty good examples. So we just talked about Maria. There's also this person right here, Harrison Tyler, who is the grandson of the 10th president of the United States, John Tyler. He's still alive, but he's a grandson. So let's start talking about the email that Laurel sent. Okay, this is on HistoryNet, the last surviving widow of the Civil War. This is dated April 30th, 2021. Helen Viola Jackson. Still full of life despite physical challenges, the lifelong Missourian intended to plan her funeral with the pastor, whom she befriended after they first met in church 3 decades earlier in rural Marshfield. But on this afternoon, Jackson, almost a member of the Inman family now, also planned to reveal an 81-year-old secret. I was married, she told the 35-year-old pastor. What do you mean you were married? Replied the incredulous Inman, who thought Helen had been single her entire life. Jackson was no jokester, so this must be serious. Jackson paused, then revealed even more stunning information. Well, he was in the Union Army. Holy cow. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine sitting there listening to that? She was married to somebody in the Union Army. If you're outside of the United States and you're not familiar with the Civil War, the war was between the North, which was referred to as the Union, and the South, which were the Confederates. The veteran was 93 and she was 17. Helen Jackson was the last Civil War widow, and oh, what a story this old woman had to tell. I'll bet. When he enlisted in 1864, Bolin, a 20-year-old farmer from Webster County, had dark hair and a fair complexion. The 5'8" private served honorably with the 46th Missouri Infantry from fall 1864 to March 1865, and later with the 14th Missouri Cavalry. Although they were busy, neither unit saw much serious fighting. Following a divorce from his first wife during the Civil War, Bolin married Elizabeth Farrell in 1868. That's a different person. We're talking about Jackson, so this is somebody else. And the couple had seven children together. After Elizabeth's death in 1922, James had no one to help with the chores. So In 1936, James Jackson recommended his daughter Helen, then a 17-year-old high school student, okay, to go help with the chores. There she is right there. This kindly old man and the teen grew close. No, not in that way, says the article. Bolin enjoyed Helen's company, and Jackson, an eager caregiver, became the veteran's lifeline. One day, Bolin made an unusual proposal to Jackson. I do not believe in accepting charity and don't have money to pay you, so why don't you marry me so I can give you my Civil War pension when I'm gone? For a girl of modest means, the veteran's pension check, perhaps $30 a month or more in Depression-era America, was too enticing to decline. Jackson accepted the old man's offer, but with strict ground rules. She would keep her maiden name, go home to her family farm every day, and tell only a select few people. The couple's 76-year-old age difference, after all, surely would have created a scandal. Let's do it, Bolin said. Less than 3 years after the marriage, on June 18th, 1939, Bolin died in the home of his daughter, Martha, after a lengthy illness. In the local newspaper, the 96-year-old veteran's obituary listed next of kin 2 other daughters besides Martha, 2 sons, 17 grandchildren, 36 great-grandchildren, and 9 great-great-grandchildren. There was no mention of his young widow. Okay, so it was strictly, I guess, just business, just giving her that benefit for helping him out when he was old. Okay. Throughout her adult life, Jackson carried heavy emotional baggage from her short marriage to James Bolin. What would anyone think of me if they found out I married a 90-something-year-old man when I was a teen? So that's the end of that. So I just have him here, here's James Bolin. Interestingly, he was born in 1843. So he would have been a member, one of the first members of the rising generation that Bruce R. McConkie was talking about, how that would have started on April 6, 1843. I don't know his exact birth date, but, he may have been part of that rising generation. Well, he lived a long time, and he passed away at 96 in 1839. So, but he would have been among the very first of that rising generation. However, this girl that he married, Helen Viola Jackson, was much, much younger, and she could have been the daughter, potentially, of the hypothetical parent. At that time, the hypothetical parent would have been 94 years old, give or take a few years, because, could have been older or younger, but, roughly in their 90s. So, and then she lived all the way until she was 101, and she passed away, interestingly, in 2020. Okay. So it just gives you like a sense of like how long things can last and these time frames that we're talking about. But there's more. Let's continue. Okay, let's talk about. Oh yeah, here's like a list of the oldest known Civil War veterans, and it's believed, and it's probably true, that she was like the last one to die. Here she is right here. Helen Viola Jackson was the last surviving widow of a Union soldier and the last surviving widow of a Civil War veteran overall. So from both sides. She died on December 16th, 2020 at the age of 101, which that's just crazy. Now, they didn't have any children, by the way. If you didn't catch that from the article, they did not have any children. So, but that wouldn't have mattered because it was Bolin, the old husband. He would have been the one in the rising generation, not his child. Okay, let's move on from there. I came across this Irene Triplett. Now look at this. She passed away May 31st, 2020. So she died in the same year as Jackson. Irene Triplett was the last recipient of an American Civil War pension. Okay, all the way until May 31st, 2020. She was receiving a pension from the Civil War. Her father fought for both the Confederacy and later the Union in the war. Triplett was born in 1930 to Mose Triplett, age 83, and Elida Hall, age 34. Okay, so here's an example of somebody that was born to a father in his 80s. She was one of 5 children, of whom only she and her brother survived childhood. Her father, who had fought for both the Confederacy and the Union during the Civil War, was aged 78 when he married her mother. Their union was Mose Triplett's second marriage. Since the death of her father in 1938, at the age of 92, Triplett collected $73.13 per month from the Department of Veterans Affairs. She was eligible to inherit her father's pension due to cognitive impairments, which she had qualifying her as the helpless child of a veteran. The total amount of benefits she received was about $73,000 or $344,000 when adjusted for inflation. After the 2018 death of Fred Upman, the son of William H. Upman, she became the last surviving child of a Civil War veteran. Now, I don't know if that's actually true. The reason why is this. It says that she died May 31st, 2020. Okay? The Wikipedia article just said that she was the last surviving child of a Civil War veteran. But when you go to military.com, there's an article from a few months later, October 12th, 2020. And it says, watch children of Civil War veterans talk about their fathers. So I don't believe that's true. I'm going to go ahead and say that military.com is more credible. Who knows? I don't know, but I'm going to go with military.com. Okay, October 12th, 2020. Irene Triplett, who we were just reading about, the last person to receive a Civil War pension from the Department of Veteran Affairs, died in June 2020. So they even have a different date on here. I just realized that. The Wikipedia article says May, but it does say May 31st. So maybe like military.com is getting like the burial date. I don't know. Who knows? Military.com says died in June 2020. The grandson of John Tyler, the 10th president of the United States, died in October 2020. Now, don't confuse him with the one that we were talking about earlier. This is a different Tyler. And I have him pulled up right here. Lion Gardner Tyler Jr. This is somebody different from Harris Ruffin Tyler. I don't know if they're like brothers, but so one of the grandsons are still alive, but this one died in 2020. Okay, so unexploded ordnance from the Civil War was still killing people as late as 2008. Gosh, what a way to go. But Americans' personal connection to the Civil War is slowly disappearing. A few of the direct descendants, sons and daughters of Civil War veterans, are still around because they were born when their fathers were in their 70s and 80s. Okay, so military.com saying that there are still children of Civil War veterans still around and that their fathers were in their 70s and 80s. So let's go back to this and let's go to the time of the Civil War. So hypothetical parent at the time of the Civil War would have been between the ages of 36 and 40. Okay, 36 to 40. And you have people in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and onward that participate in war. Okay. So anyway, you have that. And then let's go back up here. Let's assume that it was this hypothetical parent. That would bring you to about here. And this is the time that Maria Branius Moreira is born. So it'd probably be after that sometime, maybe like later 80s. I don't know. Let's assume that it's this hypothetical parent because this is the one that would have given birth to this child, the first member of the rising generation. The parent would have been 18 at the time. Okay, so we're going to go with this parent. And you can shift it by a couple years. So this particular parent could have been the parent of one of these people that we're talking about if a hypothetical parent would have given birth to them or would have fathered them in their 80s or 90s or beyond. But you see right here, and this brings us to the generation of Maria Branius Moreira and those that follow her. So this is kind of the time frame right here if we're talking about Civil War children of Civil War veterans. Does that make sense? So one more time. Hypothetical parent born 1825. Joseph Smith gives that discourse in 1843. Hypothetical parent is 18 years old and gives and fathers a child. Okay, that's the first of the rising generation. But hypothetical parent moves on through life, is part of the Civil War. Okay, at the age of, in his like late 30s. Later, he marries, he divorces, he remarries, or whatever the case may be. Later on in life, he marries a younger woman, and in his 80s, fathers a child at the time of Maria Branius, or maybe a little bit later. Okay, so that is what we're talking about. Two of the last remaining children of Civil War veterans sat down with National Geographic in time for Veterans Day 2014 in time for Veterans Day 2014 to share stories told by their fathers. They were in their early 90s at the time of the interviews. And I actually have that pulled up. This is the National Geographic article being referred to, November 10th, 2014. Children of Civil War veterans still walk among us 150 years after the war. How many people alive today can say that their father was a Civil War soldier who shook hands with Abraham Lincoln in the White House? All are very old children. Fred, 93, is not the oldest among them. Born mostly in the 1910s and 1920s to Civil War veterans and young brides. The fathers typically on second marriages were in their 70s or 80s when these children were born. Fewer than 35 of these remarkable offspring are now on the rolls of heritage groups that keep track of them. So this is back in 2014. Undoubtedly, there have been some that have passed away since that time. We know that there have been. How many remain? I do not know. I don't know. But at least in October 2020, at the time of this military.com article, it says that there are still some around. It just doesn't specify the number. Okay, so they're referred to as the quote-unquote real sons and daughters and are given a place of honor at the ongoing events commemorating the sesquicentennial of the Civil War. Clifford Ham, whose father John fought for the South. Clifford, who followed in his father's warrior footsteps as a U.S. Marine in World War II, says he still thinks of the war between the states the way Mrs. Little did. Extraordinary, even among the exclusive group of Civil War children, are 4 surviving siblings from the same family. Charles Parker Poole's sons, John, Garland, and William, and his daughter, Florence Wilson. Their father served in the Union's 6th West Virginia Infantry. And then there's Hazel Jeter. I'm not going to... Well, no, I will read that. So this is another one. They told me, says Hazel Jeter, daughter of Silas D. Mason of the 1st Maine Cavalry, it must have been your grandfather or your great-grandfather. They thought I was lying and looked at me like I was crazy. Yeah, we'll move on from there. Here is a story from 2017, July 9th, 2017, about her. As the debate rages throughout the country about how to honor Confederate soldiers, some see the statues of the Old South not as symbols of hate, but symbols of their family. For 94-year-old Iris Gay Jordan of Florida, the debate hits close to home. She still becomes emotional when she talks about her father, Lewis Gay, a soldier who fought for the Confederacy during the Civil War and survived 3 battles. So this is a daughter of someone that fought in the Civil War. This is 2017, just 1 year before President Nelson became president of the church. There's also this is from 2018, historic Union County. Most descendants of East Tennessee's original settler population are also descendants of Union veterans of the American Civil War. Closer to home, many of us are descendants of original members of Company Bravo of the 1st Tennessee Infantry, the first federal unit that was formed in Tennessee for service in the American Civil War. Living grandchildren of Civil War veterans are not as unusual as might be commonly assumed. Living grandchildren... Oh. Okay, and then the last thing that I wanted to share is this idea. Here's an example of someone that fathered a child, but died when the wife was pregnant, and the birth took place after the death. So this is Julio Iglesias Puga. He was born in 1915 in Spain. Died in 2005 at the age of 90. It says Iglesias died in Madrid the morning of December 19th, 2005 at the age of 90. Ruth Iglesias, his 4th child and only daughter, was born on July 26, 2006, 7 months after her father died. So here is another interesting case. It's a posthumous birth. And it was somebody that was in his 90s. He dies at the age of 90, and then 7 months later, the daughter is born. So anyway, basically to wrap this up, I think that this window of time where you have people that could qualify as the rising generation, I think there probably are some still around. We don't know. Some are documented, some are not. And there's lots of people across the world, so we can't know for sure. But just looking at the math and looking at these different examples, I think that window is closing really soon. Like I said before, just another reason why I believe that the second coming is sooner than later. I do believe this prophecy, and I believe that Joseph Smith said it. It's recorded in 5 different places by different people. And Bruce R. McConkie believed in it, so I think that time is very quickly approaching. But that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.